All right, hey everybody, welcome back to Four Hands Drumming. This month we are going to be talking about groove construction. This is sort of probably going to be my favorite episode because to me, as a drummer, we're talking about grooving. Playing grooves, playing beats, whatever you want to call it. Pocket, all these different words for basically playing time on the drums that feels good and is appropriate for the music, okay? So in this episode, groove construction, right? You got to get your hard hats out. Had to do it. We're basically going to break down, I'm going to break down what I'm thinking about if somebody calls a James Brown tune. What do I immediately think? Because sometimes you're at a gig in New York and somebody goes, I got ants in my pants, go. What are you going to do, right? You got to have a vocabulary of grooves and feels and hopefully that exact pocket for that song. Rock stuff, straight ahead stuff, what those really basic grooves are, and then expanding on them to start making them a little more interesting, maybe a little bit more challenging. Some of the stuff I'll probably get into will be a little more advanced and have to basically go back to the technique lesson, shed all that stuff, and then come back to this one and maybe your hands will be sort of where they need to be for some of these grooves. But I'm really excited for this lesson. I hope you guys have a good time listening to this stuff. I'm probably gonna leave this kit set up like this, really simple so we can focus on hat, snare, kick, those interactions, maybe a floor tom, maybe a crash, but very simple. And this way you can really see what I'm doing and why stuff feels the way it does when I play. That's the thing I probably get hit up the most for in private lessons with people is, man, it feels really, really good. How can I get that same feel that you're doing on that song or in this clip or on this video I saw of you? What are you doing? So I'm going to try to break down a lot of different ideas and start, again, very basic, and then start adding little things here and there, little techniques, little press rolls and stuff like that, that you'll hear make a gigantic difference sonically. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with probably just funk stuff because that's what I typically love to play. And again, I'm going to talk about how funk stuff, if you listen to it, could be a rock beat. It's what's happening around it, the bass part, the keyboard part, the vocals, all that stuff. So let's dive into all these grooves, and I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's go. 1, 2, do. Everything's got this sort of swung. As opposed to straight. That doesn't have as much funk in it, I think. Please listen to Gap Band. Please listen to Earth, Wind & Fire. Please listen to Parliament Funkadelic. Please listen to, Bernie Worrell. Please listen to James Brown, Fred Wesley and the J.B. Horns. Listen to Tower Power. All of these amazing groove bands. John Scofield with Bill Stewart. Life on Planet Groove with Maceo Parker. Kenwood Denard on drums. Woo! The record is ridiculous. I mean, and Kenwood, this is what Kenwood's playing. Or again, it's simple stuff, but it's the confidence you're playing with. It makes a big, big difference. Okay, so that was 90 BPM, playing a bunch of different feels, a lot of just backbeat stuff, but just showing how much changing the hi-hat, if you noticed, showing how much the hi-hat part changes affects the entire feel of the song. If you're playing super tight, you know, like I was trying to play basic kick snare stuff, But if you're playing super tight 16ths, very clean like a machine, that feels one way. If you swing them, that's a totally different thing. Okay? A lot of the feel stuff to me comes from these little subtle things, right? So it's like, maybe I'll use the analogy of cooking. My wife is an amazing cook. I am not, but I see what she does, and I have a pretty good palate, so I can taste stuff, but I'm just not good at the actual cooking part. So let's say you're making like a spaghetti, right? Spaghetti, the noodles, let's say, are like the kick and the snare. And the sauce is like the hi-hat and the cymbals and shakers and any other little sort of more motion kind of stuff. That's the sauce. And everybody has their own sauce that they make up, okay? So maybe your sauce is really simple. It's just crushed tomato sauce, which would be like quarter notes on the hi-hat, right? So crushed tomato sauce, spaghetti. Those are eighth notes. I said quarter notes. Quarter note spaghetti. Quarter note spaghettis doesn't taste so great, okay? Let's make eighth note spaghetti. Eighth note sauce. So just in those eighth notes, you can swing them a little bit, you can accent the upbeats. That all of a sudden takes those eighth notes, which are very simple. Everyone can play but it's making some music out of it. So regular eighths would be this. And that's also just playing with the tip of the stick, sort of in the center of the hi-hat. If I start accenting with the shoulder of the stick on the upbeats, you get this. It's a totally different feel, same amount of notes, but it's how you're putting your feel into it. It's what groove is, okay? So you're putting your stamp on it. Let's say we add some 16th notes, right? Let's play straight 16ths. Kick and snare the same. Straight 16ths sound like this. It's cool. You should have the technique to be able to do that, and we'll talk about a little exercise in a second to do that. But it's a little Roboto, Mr. Roboto sounding, which is cool if you're playing with like an electro kind of pop band. But let's say you want to take those 16ths and make it feel a little bit, I'm not going to use there's so many not silly words, but there's just so many words that are, I feel like, so overused. Oh man, your pocket. Oh, that's so greasy. Oh, that's filthy. Da, da, da. It's all stuff that basically says your groove is correct and it's making people shake their ass. So let's take those 16ths and try to put some more music into it. I'll go from the Mr. Roboto into the shake your ass 16ths, right? So immediately when I start playing the 16ths with a little bit on the ands and then swung a little bit more, my kick drum part wanted to interact with that. It didn't want to stay just on 1 and 3, right? So doom, ba-boom, boom, ba-boom. I'm going to play the kick 2 parts, okay? 2 different ways. I'm going to do straight 16ths. Listen to the kick drum pattern, how it changes. So there's a subtle lag in the second part. Boom. Instead of boom. Da-da. Ba. So being able to do both, that's a groove in itself, right? It's just straight. I'm trying to make stuff feel better. It's easy to play straight. It's harder to throw in this sort of in-between swung, right? So and straight stuff. So a good exercise is to play straight eights, right? Da, 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 and slowly morph. I did it early. Slowly morph subtly as like a subtle fader going into swung. Okay. I mean, I typically if I sit down and I'm checking out a kit, my typical go-to sounding thing is like. That's just what I'm sort of constantly hearing in my head, okay? So that in itself has a certain feel. It's sort of swung, it's not overly swung like. And it's not straight. So again, you're sort of in the middle ground there, and that tends to get people shaking it, okay? So let's do the eights straight, and then we'll start morphing it into swung. Okay, here we go. So you can tell there starts to be some sort of funny, flamming kind of weird stuff. That's just to get you to push your ears and your hands to be able to push like that, okay? I might only change it a subtle amount like this. And I'm barely doing anything with the kick and the snare drum yet, okay? So now let's start incorporating ghost notes on the snare. I'll show you a really easy way to start that off, okay? So single stroke roll, right? A very easy way to incorporate ghost notes on the snare. So if you play this with the backbeats accented on 2 and 4, playing 16th notes, right? Kick and snare together. Got a little groove. Take your hand, open it on the hi-hat, so your right hand is down on the hi-hat, and you're gonna cross over and play the 2 and 4 on the snare. 3, And you can also compress swung straight. I look at it as like straights out here, and the more you compress it, the more swung out it gets. If that's totally straight and this is totally swung, I live sort of here. Okay, it's sort of a little bit in the middle. So ghost notes on a groove are a huge part of what makes it have its lilt or its feel, let's say, because everyone's talking about feel. And this is about groove construction. So constructing this groove, let's say I'm playing like, that's doing two things. It's using the left hand ghost notes. First part is that, and then the end is like that. So I look at that as two different kinds of ghosting. One is taking that singles idea and adding it that way. Those are just singles. I'm just doing accents in different spots. Moving a single stroke roll around is an easy way to sort of get introduced into accents and little things here and there. Another big one that I talked about in the technique episode is little like press rolls with one hand. Check out, by adding a little press roll, how much you can add to a simple beat, right? Here we go. 3. I added a little bit more than a press roll, I couldn't help it. But adding these little right into the downbeats, right? So having control of this hand, right? People's hands, typically their right hands are blazing. Left hand is typically like this. It gets sort of jittery, right? You should be able to do both. You have to get your left hand up, but usually higher because you're usually down here, so you got to bring it up a little bit to get the same attack angle. Okay, so. The nice thing about having both hands equal is your singles, if you put them together, you can play them together. Or if you switch them opposite, you get singles. So it's a win-win to get your left hand together. I'm sure your right hand is already better. Okay, so here's a simple exercise I posted a bunch of different places, but now that we are in four hands drumming, I'm gonna break this down. Let's start slow, and I'll play there's 3 different parts to it, and then I'll explain it. Basically so you can match your hands, okay? So whatever your left hand can do, your right hand can do, vice versa. And then this is a fun way to do it because it's applicable in a groove. I use this all the time. Okay? A lot of people always think, okay, play 16th notes on the hi-hat. You get one of two things. Okay? A lot of people don't think to put the 16th on the snare, play 8th notes on the hi-hat. It adds a totally different texture, okay, for a groove. Haha. Okay, so let's play them a little bit faster. Just right there, you got 3 grooves with one idea. You got the 16ths on the hi-hat, you got them together, and you got them 16ths on the left hand with the snare, always getting the backbeats in there, and 8th notes on the hi-hat. So that's an easy thing. I use that all the time. Let's say you're on the ride cymbal, it sounds very different than the hi-hat, whereas these together sound similar. If you play on the ride and the 16th notes here, you get a totally cool chorus kind of thing with a little more energy, right? So it just adds another layer. I'll play it both ways. It's one way without the 16ths on the snare, one with. 3. So again, that's like a technique thing. Your left hand might be struggling with that, but it's worth it. Start slow, really slow. So once you've got that down, then you can start taking away 16th notes. Because if you're playing all of them, it gets a little much sometimes. But if you can play all of them, then you can take them away and start adding little, instead of just going the typical ghost note thing, which is you can start changing the patterns up a little bit. Another thing I use a ton in grooves is double stroke roll. Okay, right, right, left, left. And these are all like single stroke roll, double stroke roll. They're not really, I'm not using them as rolls. I'm just using them as a sticking, right, right, left, left, double strokes, okay? So. It's a really easy way. I guess it's an inverted double, so you're accenting the second note. I'm hearing that as the downbeat. So a 1, a 2, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So when you speed it up, instead of just playing, you can add the doubles in. It's an easy way to play an up-tempo kind of a thing with a lot of ghosting under it that's simple. I know once it speeds up and I start adding other little singles and stuff in there, it seems confusing, right? But it's, again, you're taking simple ideas, double stroke roll. And making a groove out of it. Getting creative. I'm just doing all this stuff on kick, snare, hat, okay? So let's like next section we'll sort of talk about getting the kick drum and the open hi-hat, getting your feet involved a little bit more. All right, let's check that out. All right, let's talk foot technique a little bit. A lot of these grooves I'm playing, right? You have to do some doubles to add, you know, a lot of the time you're playing singles, but you got to have your doubles a little bit together. So I'm going to give you this camera angle here. And you can see my foot, okay? So I don't bury the beater. Two reasons. One, I don't like the sound. I think it sounds not as great, whether it's a pillow in there or whether it's an 18-inch bass drum totally open. I hit it and come off. So I sort of lift up my leg. My toes are always touching the footboard. I'm never off, because as soon as they're off, your bass drum pedal is sort of all over the place. You always want to have control over the pedal, right? As soon as you get off, it's no bueno. And when I go down, I sort of hit the whole thing with my foot. Not my foot, my heel comes down. It's almost like I'm dropping my entire leg straight down. I'm thinking about my heel hitting the heel plate on the footboard. And the beater comes right off. Rest your leg. Okay? You don't want to be pushing in, because then you're using energy for no reason. Your balance is off. You should always be sitting center, upright. Okay, so the double, as you can see, I start a little bit farther down and then slide up. Okay, so you can see it in the groove. So again, coming up with a groove construction, it's not always just 1 and 3 on the kick. You could do it handsy, right? So this is like a handsy groove. Or you could do like more of a notey bass drum part. So it's a stroke and a slide. So down, down. So it's here, toes, and then the next note you're sort of almost throwing your heel into the back of the pedal. Okay, so just a little note on foot technique. I don't have crazy good feet. There's some guys that can play all sorts of stuff with their feet. I don't have a huge use for it because I don't hear a ton of bass drum stuff. 90% of the grooves I'm playing are not really a lot of kick drum. So again, I hope this helps with the side camera. So you can really see slow. The faster you get, the smaller, again, like single stroke roll, the faster you get, the smaller your foot slides, the shorter distance your foot slides. Whereas before it's here, when it's fast, it's this. Okay, so I hope the foot thing helps you guys.